Welcome everyone. My name is Jabu Mabuza. I'm from the speaker's firm. Welcome and thank you for choosing to join the Empower Entrepreneurs Digital Conversations, a COVID-19 discussion hosted by EmpowaWorks. A very special welcome to our keynote speaker, Mr. Jabu Mabuza, Chairperson of Sun International. We have a broad representation of stakeholders joining us directly via Zoom, and they will post their questions on the chat box. At the end of the keynote, we will respond to as many of the questions as possible. To get a direct invite to the talks, you can WhatsApp the number 082-088-5262. That gives you access to the Zoom room like you have now. Or you can visit the www.empowerworks.co.za website, where you can also get information around empowerment, empower women, empower youth, speakers firm, leadership summits, and other events. We are live on the following EmpowerWorks digital platforms: YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, as well as directly from the website. And the hashtag that we've been following for these conversations is EmpowaEntrepreneurs. Indeed, COVID-19 has changed the world. And COVID-19 and the country's response has put numerous industry sectors into economic trouble. The tourism industry has been particularly hard hit. That's why for entrepreneurs, it's always a good opportunity to speak to business leaders like Jabu Mabuza, who's directly involved in such a big sector, just to have a sense of what's going on, what the insights are. And that will be our conversation strictly around what's happening in such a big sector. Over to you, Mr. Jabu Mabuza.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation. Much appreciate the privilege to engage with entrepreneurs. I have no particular authority on this subject, other than sharing my own approach to these issues. I, as an entrepreneur myself, I am affected by this business, just as our family is invested in a number of consumer-facing businesses, driven by and large by mass and volume. I think before we dwell and drill deeper into the tourism specific issues, the one area, a couple of general observations and comments I want to make about business and entrepreneurship is, I guess, the first point to make is there really is no playbook for COVID-19 environment. So everyone, everywhere, universally, we all are facing this thing from at least the same position of not knowing how to navigate through this from a business point. So there is no one we can go to and say, how did you deal with it when you first faced it? Even various pandemics in the past, like the Spanish flu and what happened in 1820, would all indicate that those were new at the time, and they offer us no reference point, either than the impact is massive, and there are a lot of people that will not survive. There are a lot of businesses that will not open. There are a lot of businesses that every day longer than we have not been allowed to go back to operation is a day closer to their demise. The second point is the economy. The economic system as we know it has been basically based on need on the one side and the want, need by the have-nots and want by the haves. And counterbalancing that has been the supply and demand balance. Now, entrepreneurs the way I define entrepreneurs are those people that look at the need and wants on the one side and come with solutions and address that gap that exists in what is supply meeting the demand. So the supply demand and the demand supply balance, as we know, in the free market, in the economic system that we've become very accustomed to, is that which determine price. And price, without really getting on an economics lecture, and price really is that which says the more you can sell the same thing, or the more you can sell at a higher price, the more you're going to make money. That's when you're going to get the margin, and that your margin will result in profit. But that would suggest, therefore, that our business and commerce, our economic system has been based about selling more or selling for more, which speaks to volume, which speaks to mass. This is the commerce as I have known it. I heard you welcome Thibaut Touch. He's in the business of eyeballs and ears. So the more people can hear about what he sells, the more people can watch what he sells, the more he's going to make money. However, the new normal is one that seeks to turn this entire economic system on its head, which is less is more. You know, the whole concept of births, marriages, and deaths is what determine numbers. Now, you cannot go to a birthday party and be more than 50. You cannot attend a marriage, wedding, and be more than 50. You cannot be at a funeral and be more than 50. So this whole mass-based, volume-based type of a business model is one that now seeks to be on digital. The very conversation we are having today, in the past it would have been 22 people in one room, 30, 40, 100 people. You can imagine how complicated it's going to be for campaigning for the local government elections. You just think about, so that too is going to change the way we do business, the way we go to market. We move. I grew up in the beverage business, in SAB and in ABI on the Coca-Cola side of beverages. So we're now moving from throats to eyeballs. If you think about beverages, so it's now going to be the number of clicks that is gonna be the incrementals, the things that you're gonna do more of is how many times you click. So this speaks to platforms. This speaks to not warehouses. This speaks to you moving from experiencing things than owning things. So you don't need to need to own a restaurant to be able to offer food. So you need a mobile kitchen. If you can, because I heard in the newspaper that a young entrepreneur, Maps Maponyane, in his burger outlet out of Linden, has to deliver his burgers from Linden to as far afield customers as in Soweto. You've got to start to think about the issues of freshness, the issues of the just now. Does a burger that was made 30 minutes ago in Linden still appeals as a burger that has just been made at the back of a Mercedes-Benz and offer it at the time? So these are the challenges that are now going to face you as entrepreneurs and as business. As I say, people don't want to, we've started to see things like the advent of Uber. People don't have to own cars to be in a car. And you can imagine this on many other services and products. Think about entertainment, whether that is cultural issues or social situations in the entertainment space, in the cultural space, and indeed in the religious space. On Sunday, I got woken up at home the other day to say there's a church service that starts at 8. I said, no, but I slept late. No. As my wife said, don't allow the devil to get into you. Wake up. You are in the comfort of your bedroom. We had our Mfundisi Klamza deliver the service and continue to have the problems of interferences with people that don't mute. But we had service. Now, the entire funding and financing of our parishes is based on us going to church and pay our tithes and or contribute our collections. Now, once I've paid for my data to log in, doesn't occur to me how is the Mfundisi going to afford to be on the Zoom himself. So these are some of the challenges that have turned business as we know it on its head. The issues of logistics, issues of commerce, issues of e-commerce, when these were being bandied around that anything that is can be digitized will be digitized. Issues of artificial intelligence, quantum computing, machine-to-machine talking, they looked so far away, at least from people like myself, but they are now. Here I am talking to a machine, hoping this machine talks to your machine and your machine talks to you, and you hear me in real time. That's what the current way of doing business presents. So, by definition, less people have digital platforms. You have had the calls for data must fall, which in itself speaks to your platforms are either going to be inaccessible, they are going to be expensive, they are going to not have sufficient bandwidth, they're going to be a lot of scramble for this. So the point I'm making, without really speaking specifically about tourism, and I'll come to tourism as I wrap my initial opening comments. I have been advised that this is meant to be interactive. I have been told I can speak without interruption for 25 minutes, but I don't think I have that much to speak. So I'll try and say less in my general opening remarks, and we can go into the more interactive actions on your question and answers. Sorry. So the real issue now is there are various challenges. Most businesses, the entire business approach has been debt is cheaper than equity, so use less of your own money, get banks' money, get debt to invest in businesses. Your business debt is based on the revenue you're going to generate. You can't generate revenue, but your debt continues to be there. So our traditional businesses in the tourism, travel, and hospitality sector, they're based on fixed costs. We've got buildings, we've got hotel rooms, we've got beds. In that business, you spend money setting up the business and open the doors, hoping people would come in. So that money has long been spent. And we can go into the specifics just to contextualize what this business is. The economic value of, just for context, of the tourism industry in South Africa, it contributes 8.6% of the country's GDP. There's about 120 billion rand that should be earned, could be earned in foreign exchange. It employs in excess of 1.5 million people directly. There are 49,000 and higher number of SMEs that are linked into this business. There is 273 billion that is spent that was spent in this industry in 2018, and there is 18 to 38 billion that is being spent in casinos and in restaurants. So there is a bigger capital impact on the supply chain, another 206 billion, 12.5% of locally manufactured vehicles support the car rental business. There's 8% direct impact to the retail sector. I've got to go and buy some eggs before I can provide eggs for breakfast in a hotel. And whether I need more than sanitizers, I need cleaning detergents and stuff like that, I need to supply the retail industry, about 8% of that. And there is a bigger and further impact on other industries, like in the manufacturing, in services, in the fuel consumption, in construction, and indeed in the agriculture. The food, as I've just gave you an example of eggs. So the point to be made here, all these businesses, when we look at a place like Sun City, or we look at a place like Monte Cassino, we just think this is a big business. There are many businesses at Monte Cassino where I've spent most of my time. There are no less than 52 restaurants, and none of those restaurants are owned by the owners of Monte Cassino. These are various moms and pops, as Touch and some people that he talks to refers to them. So the point I'm making is all these businesses, it has to be now a different way of approaching business. It's not gonna be you sell more, sell for more to more people. You now have to sell to less with bigger value add and bigger value impact. The advantage on the one side in the new that we all don't know is that there are no intermediaries. There is more impact, direct contact from the supplier to the consumer. So you get an immediate rejection or acceptance of your service and your product. You don't need to go and go back to market research and find out, is this gonna be accepted or not? So in there will be a lot of failures that put market products and services on the market that's gonna be rejected. But the beauty, the rejection is gonna be so instant and the take-up is gonna be so instant. So yeah, as I said, we in the travel and tourism business, we have been challenged. We have been allowed now to open for business travel, but business travel is a very small part of our business. We have been allowed to open domestic business travel. Most of our offerings appeal in their value to international travelers. So to get an operation, just to give you context, to get an operation like Sun City to operate, it costs no less than 50 million rand a month. Just to pay for the water, just to keep the plant going, to keep the air conditioning going, to ensure that there's no weed that grows in the reception tiles. That costs about 50 million rand. Most of these businesses, as I've indicated earlier, there's been a lot of money invested in the capital of these businesses. Most of them have got debt. There's a lot of debt in these businesses. I had the number the other day of how much is owed by the casino and hotel businesses in this space. So even government benefits of UIF or TERS programs, they are not going to be sufficient. There is not enough number of banks and money to can meet the requirements. There is also not enough number of shareholders. As you know, the stock exchange has got this number of companies, but there is just so many institutions that are invested in this. And your business, Sun International, for instance, happens to be just part one. So there are many other businesses that a key institutional investor like a Coronation, a PIC, or an Allen Gray or Old Mutual or Sanlam for that matter, or the unit trust that you and I, either than through our pension funds, are invested in. They have many, I'm sorry, they've got many other companies they've invested in. And when they have to allocate their capital, they're going to be checking who's likely to be out first, who's likely to get a bigger yield. So old industry like the travel and tourism businesses, as I said, that rely on physical infrastructure, by definition, the travel business is about people-to-people connection, goods to people, people to goods, services to people, people to services. These, in their nature, they are not what the new normal would lend very favorably to. So it does tend, this is not just a reset button of the economic system as we've known it. This is an entire restart, reboot of the entire economic system. Why don't I pause here and go back to you, moderator, and let's take it from there.
Yeah. Thank you very much for those opening remarks, and I can see people are already putting in their questions through. So while I allow them to put more questions, I will ask mine, and then after that, I will cut my video so that I can get closer to the screen to be able to read the questions. Earlier, you spoke about Thibaut Touch as well as his need for eyeballs for the business to happen. Like any other entrepreneur, he opens doors, for example, for us to have this conversation tonight. He has a big part. Entrepreneurs' doors need to be opened by other entrepreneurs. In your view, are entrepreneurs doing enough to highlight to each other where the opportunities are versus just looking at one person to solve all the problems?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, one needs to acknowledge that the capitalist system is individualistic by definition. And entrepreneurs are those people that would see a gap and not wait for anyone to say, go there. It is very entrepreneurial as a manner of speaking that Thibaut Touch, I don't know, approached you or you approached him, or to say, I can access the Grootman, I know him. And as it turns out, I never spoke to him about it. He sent me a text and I forwarded the text to my chief of staff. And the next thing I was told, I must present myself here. So entrepreneurs don't wait for anyone to do anything for them. Because if anybody can do what you're gonna do, then there's nothing that is unique and special about you. So what differentiates one entrepreneur over others is the one that has seen the opportunity first and jumped at it. Make mistakes in the process. Make mistakes. But entrepreneurs are not scared to make mistakes. Entrepreneurs want to make mistake, but must learn from the mistakes they make. You are a better entrepreneur. A lot of people that have made money, they must have just made more money than what they've lost, but money they've lost. So entrepreneurs, by definition, take what they call calculated risks, but risks they take. They follow a vision, they follow a gut feel, they empower and enable themselves by getting people that know certain disciplines, whether it's science, whether it's technology, whether it's engineering, whether it's accounting, but the entrepreneurs, what we call visionaries. We're calling them visionaries because they saw things we could not see. That's why we call Saul Kesner, may his soul rest in peace, a visionary. He could see in a bush in the Pilanesberg a great resort. And he did not put his only all his money. He had to get some people to put money. He got the best architects, the best engineers, the best accountants to do that. So entrepreneurs should not, cannot, will not wait for anyone to go to them.
Thank you for that. As I promised, I'm going to switch off my video so that I can get closer to screen to read the questions that have come through. So excuse me as I do that. Ulwazi brings us to a very important point because context makes all the difference. While entrepreneurs operate and they take the risks, something else sets the conducive environment. So here is Ulwazi's question. It says, good evening, Mr. Mabuza. The hospitality industry has been hardest hit by COVID-19. Do you think that government interventions have been adequate in their support of this industry, or more needs to be done? That's Ulwazi.
Do you want us to take these questions as they come, or you want to take them in a batch?
Let's take them as they come. There are not many at the moment.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, Lwazi, good evening. Yeah, there will never be sufficient support, as I indicated. I have spent a lot of my earlier life in the travel and tourism business. For 9 years, I was on South African tourism, and for six of those 9 years, I was chairman of South African tourism. So I have seen what the government has done to support tourism from a marketing point, to market South Africa. Bearing in mind, it can never market Tsuhosan or market Southern Sun or Sun International or Protea. It can help market the country. That effort is now done through Brand SA, but the government has understood and has appreciated the impact of tourism in the economy. We've had a lot of people saying, for every one person that is a tourist, there are 3 to 5 other people that benefit from that. Others push the number to up to 8. So there's been a lot of work on the marketing. There's been a lot on the education. You have seen the work that has been done in educating our communities. Take the communities living around the game parks. To say, yeah, a poacher can come and offer you 3,000 for a rhino horn, but tourists that visit to see this one rhino, this is the impact they would have to the community of Manyeleti or a community of Haminga, The people have started to understand that. We have seen when tourists were being attacked, that it finally dawned on South Africans that, you know, the tourists that are being attacked are tourists that are bringing economic benefit to the country. They create jobs and they create forex earnings. So government can only go so far in creating the environment whether is in passing laws and regulations that deals with airlift, because you need, tourists can only come to South Africa via planes or ships. So if you're not gonna provide enough airspace and slots at these various airports for other airlines to come here, I spend most of my time at that time at South African Tourism trying to say, we cannot continue to protect SAA that do not have the ability to be all over the world whilst we are refusing other international carriers slots. So in policy on the transformation, on the transportation, on the logistics, on airlift, in education, on the marketing, yes, they've done a great job. Here, the amount that has been set aside is unfortunately too little. 200 million will not be able to support the tourism and travel business. So it might support the bed and breakfast or the Airbnb or the tour operator that moves people between Sandton and Sakumzi in Soweto. But those people will never fly in to wait for Brajeri's taxi to take them. They would be coming to South Africa. They would have flown. They would have been staying in other hotels. They would go into other attractions. So your entire itinerary, we are too small a market as a country for our source markets. When a tourist have to travel from Germany, China, the UK, or France, or the US, it was so far. You therefore have to give them something that is going to take at least 10 days of an itinerary. So you've got to start thinking about bringing them to come, starting in Musiwatunya in the border of Zimbabwe and Zambia on the Vic Falls, and then go to see some of the game in Botswana, come to Kilimanjaro, go to the Masai Mara as they come down to see the Table Mountain and see Robben Island, and then offer them something in Soweto in the Apartheid Museum. The point I'm trying to make is all those are things that a country can put on the table, but the government is never going to have enough. In this COVID-19, it has become very, very clear that our needs can never be covered for by government. But what the government can help us do is to create us, enable our tourism industry as a give us a competitive advantage. This is on our visas, our e-visas and our e-infrastructure. Waive some visas for our major source markets, critical skills. We need visas for some skills. We don't have to come here, but we must balance that with the people that are saying people come from outside to take our jobs. Licensing of the vehicles that move these people, additional funds to market the country, our public-private partnership build and continuously enhancement. I spoke about the airlift, air liberalization to liberalize the access through our air. And indeed, a lot of tourist investment incentives. You need to have venues like Sun City to be given incentives to be there so that you can bring tourists to those resorts.
Thank you very much for that. There are a couple of questions that are possibly related, so I will read them and then let's combine those. One is from Nkululeko Zondo, who says, thank you for the insights, Chaba and Baba Mabuza. Question, what are the top opportunities post-COVID-19 in this sector? This looking at it from an SMME who wants to enter this market/sector. So you might have covered that, but quite specific to say, what are those opportunities? Meshach says, many business owners and entrepreneurs are worried about the economic impact of COVID-19 pandemic. How can entrepreneurs handle the effects of COVID-19? And then the other one that comes from James, which is, I think, related, says, do you think that entrepreneurial collaboration is key to unlock business recovery, especially for people of color? How then can this be mitigated by entrepreneurs? As you know, there's that question of distrust. Thank you. If you can handle those three, they have similar things.
Thank you. Maybe let's start with James. I really believe James, having said that capitalism is individualistic, I am very much aware of the dangers of people stealing your idea. I have a niece that that's too fresh in my mind. She's a lawyer by training. She worked in the insurance business for the greatest part of her working life. Got married last year, and she trusted someone, and they were together working on an insurance product. And then just before launch, the partner was just no longer excited about advancing the programs of launching. Lo and behold, a couple of days later, she gets to hear that this person is launching the product. So those things are real. That said, there is the concept of co-opetition. You can cooperate and compete. It's true. However big the elephant is or the buffalo is, a certain number of leopards and or lions can bring a big elephant or buffalo down. You need to always know what is your the so-called USP. What is it that is unique about you in this idea? So that if anybody was to ever steal that idea, it would flop because they are not original. They haven't thought all the various pitfalls that may fall them. So collaboration in a context of a relay, more than in the context of let's run together. That's part of what we call value chain in business. Yeah, Mishek, the discussion we are about is about the impact and the effects of COVID-19. As I indicated, unfortunately, when the tide comes, all ships will float. But if you're trying to push your own ship when there's no tide, you're gonna be trapped in the sand and you're not gonna get anywhere. So we should all be pushing towards bringing the tide so that all ships will float. Maybe mine might not be the one that floats, but those that float will press more water to come back to shore, and mine would finally get in there. So unfortunately, we are part of a global economy, an economy that has got its own challenges, has got its own COVID. Some of these economies were in a better shape than ours. You know, our economy has not been in a great shape, occasioned by a number of challenges, some being our own goals as South Africans, the problems that we've had on the business that I was fired from, the load shedding that we've had on our electricity supply. So our economy was not in a good state. We have been downgraded by all rating agencies to date. We are in junk. So we've not been in a good position. So COVID finds us really by the graveside. And thankfully, I looked at the statistics yesterday. We have more recoveries continuing, but that said, one more death is one more death too much. So, and it's gonna be with us as we enter into the bitter cold winter that we're heading, and it's gonna be difficult. So entrepreneurs who rely on numbers of people for their services and products are gonna having the challenges, which are the words I covered in my opening remarks. Nkululeko, Mtiane, as I said, opportunities when azondi maningi kakhulu. There are many opportunities for small and medium enterprises. However, until the big engine turns, you will not have a customer to supply if your customer is a big operator.
Thank you very much. I just want to acknowledge Peter Tate sends a high five to everyone in here just to announce himself. Thank you, Peter Tate. Now let me just take one that is a little bit long, but perhaps maybe sometimes is understanding what somebody's looking for. So Tuto Temai just says that he's running an ECD Technology Information Center in Alexander Township. He says, we teach the youth everything about the fourth industrial revolution through workshops. We need help with introducing programs of robotics to the youth in Alexander. We want equipment and resources for our information center. While there's no question there, what are the new opportunities that are emerging around this fourth industrial revolution, doing things differently that you are seeing in the sector? Jabu Mabuza?
Yeah, I have not been in that sector since I left Telkom. But this entire space of the fourth industrial revolution is an area that is, that's how life is gonna be, that's how business is gonna be. As I said, we are heading into that area. Some other economies are there. We have a lot of infrastructure that has been provided with access to broadband. And we all are aware of the fights that everybody is waging to bring the cost of data down. These are all the tools you need for machine to machine, for quantum computing, for digital economy to take place, and all the isms that come with this. But an area that I think in an environment like where Tuto is, that seemed to me an area that is not as overtraded as what do you call it, internet cafes, is perhaps we should look at more how we bring many young people into the coding environment, how to teach them coding, because that is the skill that is going to be required in the future. It's not going to be so much so whether you can drive a taxi. It's going to be the language, the speak is going to be coding. So anybody who is in that space is going to be, yeah, that's going to be the difference between those that can read and write and those that can't.
Thank you so much for the response. Tandana is pretty much just saying, you know, thank you so much for this platform. And I sincerely think this is exactly what we need to do more of, you know, during this COVID-19 time. This type of sharing of information from role models like yourself that have been there, done that, can only improve our views and outlook of the endless possibilities out there, Siyabonga, Kutanane. And I think that's the reason why we are saying, let's have these digital conversations, especially during this period, to prepare ourselves for what's coming ahead. There are two questions that are the same but very different. One is from Tibo Touch. Another one is from our digital platforms. That comes from Malaika. Malaika says, what about promoting African tourism, allowing tourists who can travel by car within the continent? Just looking for your view there. Tibo Touch says, Mr. Mabuza, most establishments like the likes of Sun City Palace, Oyster Box, Maslow Hotels have 70% of their traffic from West and Eastern markets because of strength of their currency. We understand the need to promote domestic tourism. Will it be practical to give incentives to locals so that most of our locals can afford to be tourists? So there's a combination of local tourism there and then also African tourism.
Yeah, I can't agree more with both points that both Malaika and Tibo Touch are making. I do think some of there are a lot of things we need to do in our, as I said, in our experiences and our tourism. I mean, there is a need for Africans to move the paradigm that when you come to South Africa, you're not just coming into a big zoo to come and look at how Africans, black animals live here. There is something we can offer you. We can offer you great climate, lovely people, great fauna and flora. We can offer you a good experience, a good cuisine. We just need to finally find what is South African cuisine. Is it boerewors? Is it malamukhodi? Is it umngqushu? Is it popoti? That itself is part of what you create to appeal to a palate. I had the other day people talk about bed cooks and mangola and acha, and we need just taking cuisine as an experience of how we could be experienced. But also the one thing I have always believed in as a small entrepreneur in my early days in the 80s, mid 80s, in the travel and tourism business was a simple concept like, you know, when people that live in the skyscrapers, when they live in the skyscrapers, they are unlikely to want to stay in the skyscrapers and call that holiday. That's why they want to go to the bush. We live in the bush. We should be wanting to go and holiday in the skyscrapers. But if hotels in Sandton are full Tuesday to Friday morning, they empty by and large Friday to Monday morning. In the meantime, you've got Tibo Touch, a young man staying on some apartment down the road in Catherine Street, a bachelor. He eats from Mr. Delivery, goes to a laundromat. He cannot afford more than the visiting partner for the weekend to be in that apartment. So how about targeting Tibos and say, Tibos, when your grandparents come from the Val to visit you for the weekend, we've got this special package for them at the Maslow. The bed is made, the room has been paid for, the shampoo is already there. The only thing it's gonna cost us is to replenish put another sachet of the shampoo. So it does require a certain kind of thinking to appeal to local tourism. I just use that as just but one example, but I agree with you. It's gonna take time before we see those foreign currency people come in. I need to go and see my daughter in Cape Town. I am not gonna be one of the first people jumping onto that plane. I'll wait a bit. I'll wait a bit and see those that have been and back.
Yeah.
So, sonke sabo Thomas sikholwa ngokubona. Those that believe this thing is fatal are not gonna just jump in and become the guinea pigs. So it's gonna take time, and in its nature, the business of tourism is relies more on the word of mouth. Hey, I've been to Gamamyang Chaza. I know Papega Manglina Mnandi Lapana, and the beverages also come appropriately chilled, if you prefer them chilled. For me to go there, I must have been talking to someone whose judgment I trust on experiences. I must have seen someone who's been to another country before I can go in there. So the point I'm trying to make is gonna build it's gonna take incremental build to reach a stage. Between now and then, we're gonna have to find a way to adapt. We're gonna have to find a way to adapt. So you need adaptive business models.
And then the one about Africa, promoting tourism in Africa from Malika.
Indeed, you would have been aware of the work that is being done in SADC. You've been aware of the work that is being done by the various regional blocs, the Africa Trade, ATPF, the issues in SADC, ECOWASA. These various regional blocs are starting to, firstly, try and ease the movement of people and goods. These are starting to look at their issues of trade. The issues of people to people is one that in my various interactions with many business people in the continent that they have been very critical of. Aliko Dangote has gone on record stating that it's easier for him to go to Europe and the US than to get a visa to come to South Africa. So we need to have our borders to be that much conducive. I'm aware there are various challenges that face this space, and this is nothing like xenophobia, but there are challenges of how you're going to open these borders so that you can have a people-to-people type of movement. There's a big debate within the AU to have an Africa-wide visa. So, and the infrastructure Thibaut touch is, or Malaika, is one that the roads, but I couldn't agree with you more. When we have, you see the travel in continental Europe, we must start to see the travel in continental Africa. We have our many other issues, and our history, whether it's colonialism or oppression, has played a part and has worked to accentuate that which we disagree or differ about than the things we agree on and the things that are common to us all.
Well, thank you very much. And I guess Thibaut Touch, if you are hearing there, got a comment to say, Thibaut Touch looks like he can put himself, people in touch with each other. So if you can just, Thibaut Touch, talk about the website, or any place where people can interact with you, I will appreciate it. So that's some of the messages. That's the website as to how people can get hold of you. This is going to be a last question, Jabu Mabuza. And I like how Akashni has set it up. It's like a punchline at the end. So I'm going to read something quite long, but I urge you to listen to that punchline at the end. So Akashi says, good evening, Mr. Mabuza. With economies and stock markets plunging, businesses are scrambling to figure out how to deal with operational disruptions. The reality is that COVID-19 is spreading quickly and will continue to spread for a while. A crisis forces us to act and think differently. So what possible upside could there be in having both our health and economy threatened simultaneously? Unique opportunities are certainly presenting themselves during these challenging times. However, it is our ability to identify and prioritize these opportunities that sets us apart. This principle is equally true for businesses and individuals. We would like to help the people in this industry to upskill, reskill, and look at the digital economy to supply their services or goods to the world using our digital platforms. There is that question, the punchline. Can Sun International CSI/ED and SD teams allocate funds to train existing staff to generate own income? I thank you. And if you can use a minute to answer that, and then 3 minutes to just wrap up for today.
Yeah, I think this whole debate of lives and livelihood is one we're gonna continuously balance. We're gonna have to continuously have to juggle both. But I guess it's a question of how can we live with COVID? Because a COVID-free environment, it's not gonna happen soon. And we're not gonna wait for the world to find vaccines and then be nice to Africa and give us the vaccine. By that time, life won't be worth living. So I agree with you, we need to skill, upskill, reskill in the new way of doing business. Certainly, if we were to come with a proposal to Sun International or any big business for that matter, that they see how they gonna be better with your idea, they will definitely support that. But for now, we've got bigger issues. We've got bigger issues of the number of people that we're employing, and we don't need in the now. Because as I indicated, our hotel business is based on building the infrastructure, employing people to come and service people that come to the hotel. No one is coming to the hotel, but you've got people that are there that you have to pay. So the point of buying from them, skilling them to can sell to me, is one that maybe is maybe necessary, but it's actually 6 steps away from what currently face me. Is how I can pay them without any revenue. So I've got to go and borrow money or go to shareholders and ask for money to keep them on the payroll. As I've indicated, that these are quite big numbers. Some of our costs, these big hotel groups, their costs just of standing still is around 200 million rand a month. And the tears cannot be sufficient. So to close, you do have those liquidity challenges, but at the end, colleagues, compatriots, friends, young people, this is gonna be the call of who will survive and who will not be here. So we need business models that are adaptive. We need tech-enabled value chains. We are going into a contactless service provision type of an environment. And on labor, we need to move labor from being a fixed cost to a variable. So I'll pay for your use. I can't have people that are pay for cleaning rooms that are not dirty, because rooms are going to be dirty when someone has slept in the room. So it's a challenge to this business. You need small businesses that are nimble versus businesses that are based on mass production. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jabu Mabuza, Chairperson of Sandton International, for so generously sharing your experience, wisdom, and giving us hope in this important sector that's hit so hard by COVID-19. A big thank you to everyone that joined us via Zoom directly, as well as on the EmpowaWorks digital platforms. For the next conversations, remember to go to the website or WhatsApp number 082-088-5262. This video and conversation is available on YouTube on the digital platforms if you want to replay it and replay it and replay it until the insight that you are looking for is there. Until next time, once again, thank you very much, Mr. Jabu Mabuza, and for everyone, have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.